All right, thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Jennings. Welcome to the Military Minute Podcast. All right, so the essence of the world of podcasting is that you don't necessarily know what you're going to be talking about episode to episode, and sometimes your audience drives it for you. The last two episodes, we talked about how I actually got on national TV with Montel Williams and the Military Makeover Operation Career television show that airs on Lifetime and syndicated around the globe on a number of other channels, which is just an amazing thought process to me. But since airing that, we have actually gotten a lot of response, surprisingly, again, stuff I didn't think anybody would ever care about, asking what was it like to work with Montel Williams and to actually do this program. So today's episode, we're going to talk about a little bit what it was like to actually do the show in the two parts that we did. The first part of those being what we did in studio with Montel, and then the other part of that being what we did here in our studio back here at our headquarters. So starting off with the studio itself and the work we did there, that was actually a really interesting experience in itself. Because a lot of people, when they think about the Montel Williams show, they think about the fact that when he did his original show, he was based out of California. So in this particular case, Military Makeover and Military Makeover Operation Career, the studio for that is actually in Florida. So in Southeast Florida. So that actually worked out pretty well for us because that was very easy to get to. As a matter of fact, inside of the studio there in the day that I went, in the day that I showed up there, I was actually coming into the studio, and the dressing room that I was using for getting ready for the show had actually just been previously used by Danica Patrick. So that was actually kind of cool. So that way as well. But in coming into the show itself, the first thing was that they scheduled us for a 90-minute segment. As I had mentioned in the last episode, we were actually scheduled for what was going to be a 2 to 3 minute interview segment on the show that would actually have fit in with another segment they were running otherwise. And I will say this wasn't my first experience with this. I've been interviewed on television. I've participated in some local television shows here on a number of occasions. We had been doing the podcast, so we had some experience doing that. And actually, just a few weeks before it is that we did the filming for the show, I had also just been interviewed by John Bachman on Newsmax related to the Army-Navy game. So I had some experience in going into this and doing this, but this was a little bit different because these segments and the ones it is that I did previously were really just purely live shows. They were live talk shows that we had done, and the interview was live, and then it was over. And the way that Montel had explained to me what we were doing in this particular segment for TV is what they call live to tape, which means it's similarly unscripted like a live or a live TV interview would be, except for the fact that we have the ability to go back and redo particular segments that we'd like, or if we want to add content or review it before we did it, we had the ability to do that in the studio. So that was effectively how we did it. They had us blocked for 90 minutes. You had to go through the whole process of makeup and setting all of that up. But the studio itself in the modern era was actually pretty impressive, because inside of the studio where we were sitting, they had the living room set up. And if you see the show and you see everything it is that's in the background on that show, that is all digital. On that show, that is a series of digital screens that look like actual backdrops, and it's all high resolution. There, it's very, very, very impressive stuff that they had in place, and so kind of the first thing that happened with the show that I thought was actually pretty interesting was that they had the chairs set up the way they were. And the very first thing we did and said, no. Montel said, no. I want to be a lot closer to Mike. So he's like, pulled the chair. He's like, put these things closer together. I want to be closer together. So since he is a Naval Academy graduate and I'm a Naval Academy graduate, that part of it we sort of hit it off very easy, and he wanted to talk a little bit about that and highlight the Navy experience, and then they wanted some pictures from my military time to be able to put up on the show. But then in the end, as we started talking about the things that were interesting and going through the questions there, we ran through the whole first take, and it took about 7 minutes to do that. And we got done with that first segment, the first take, and he looks at me and he says, "You're really good at this." I said, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that." So ultimately, they thought we might have to go through the whole interview several times, which is why they set this up for a 90-minute segment to work it out. But in the end, it ended up taking about 45 minutes. In the end, we went back and there were a couple of things that he had decided that he wanted to ask me about to bring out that came in the show, and then we smoothed out one section. But at each phase, whenever it is that we finished up a take, the producer, who was working back in the back room, and her name is Jean, and she would come out and she would look at it, and she would basically say, "Hey, here's what we got." And every time she'd come out, she's like, "This is turning out really, really good." So talking with Montel and working with him, he was absolutely great. Definitely had enjoyed spending the time with him at there. And ultimately, we didn't actually spend all that long together. We kind of wrapped things up, and he made a few restaurant recommendations there in the local area because he was talking about how great the food was around there, and he was absolutely right. Then on the second part of this is that then for the tip series segment that we did all of that here in-house in our studio based on this particular set, and then the set that we have where we have our monitor screen there beside it. So there's 2 episodes that were filmed with basically a similar backdrop to what you see here, and then the 2 with the television backdrop. And this part, even though we weren't working with Montel, we were working with his crew. And that was an amazing experience. I mean, they brought people in from all over the country to do this. They brought the makeup people in, they brought camera crew people in here. And then ultimately, on all of my segments, I wrote the scripts for that. They put it up, and kind of like, dirty little insider secret on this is, I didn't write the scripts until the morning they showed up. I was literally writing the scripts while they were here. And of course, if Scott were on here right now with us, he would testify to that because he was there. And I knew they were getting really nervous about the fact that I didn't have the scripts ready for them to load into the prompter, that I literally wrote my segments for all 4 of those segments that particular morning, and we executed them. And that was supposed to be an all-day event as well, that they were starting here at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was supposed to run until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But even with all of the scripts and everything we ended up finishing up, I think it was around 2:30 when we wrapped up that particular day. But I have to say that experience in working with them and their professionalism and how they set everything up, and quite frankly, what I really just found so wonderful about working with that team is how much they really cared about the mission. You think about TV and shows that people do, and you kind of feel like it might just be an impersonal thing. But the people who produce Military Makeover Operation Career care about veterans, and they cared about this story, and they really put lots of care into how we told it. And I know that is a reflection of the relationship between the host and his crew. And so with that, the one lesson that I was actually planning to talk about as it related to the show that we'll get to the next part is what I learned from Montel Williams as a part of this show, and we'll cover that in our next episode. But thanks for joining us today. I'm Mike Jennings, and this is the Military Minute Podcast.
Thanks for joining the Military Minute. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you're notified when a new episode is released. Is there a topic or conversation you want discussed here on the show? Send it to me at scott.cunningham at militaryminute.us.